Hi guys, it's your girl Lola Loves You, and I'm back with another video. Well, this video is, I already did the video, but I'll have to do a redo because of the sound quality of the first video. So I'm going to redo the Whitney Houston and Robyn story part 1. I'm going to do a redo and sit back and relax, and I hope y'all enjoyed the redo of this video. Bye. If you already didn't get this book, please go get this book. Robyn Crawford's book, A Song for You, My Life with Whitney Houston, is an excellent read. You can buy it in any bookstore, Amazon, everywhere. And if you get it on Audible, Robyn is vocally speaking, telling the story herself. In the summer of 1980, Whitney Houston was a senior at Mount St. Dominic's. And during the summertime, her mother thought that she needed some extra responsibilities and to get a summer job at the Orange County Development Center in New Jersey. At this time, Robyn was offered a job at the same center by her coach, and that's how her and Whitney Houston met. Robyn noticed her first, and she just said Whitney Houston was, staying to herself, and she went over to her and asked her name, and Whitney Houston said her name was Whitney Elizabeth Houston. And Robyn thought that was funny because people didn't go around saying their middle names. But in a rare interview during the Whitney Houston documentary, Whitney Houston noticed Robyn as well, and she said Robyn had this big hair, and she was beautiful, and she was intrigued by her as well. So both of them, you kind of can say, in my opinion, it was love at first sight when they first saw each other. Now, with the two being counselors at the same community center, they kind of started building a friendship with each other. Robyn worked the day shift, and Whitney worked the afternoon shift. So when after Robyn's time was over as the counselor, Whitney Houston came in as the counselor, and they would cross each other paths, and then they start building a friendship. They started talking. Robyn found out her cousins lived right around the corner from Whitney Houston, and she used to always be over there, and they never crossed paths. Another interesting fact is Robyn's mother used to teach at Mount St. Dominic's, but she taught at the nighttime. That's the same high school Whitney Houston attended. Small world. Another interesting fact is Whitney Houston lived on Dawes Street, and on Dawes Street they had a local McDonald's like right down the street from Whitney Houston, and Robyn worked there throughout her junior year in high school, and it's so crazy they still never crossed paths. That's so weird. Now, right after having a new job and building a friendship, Whitney Houston became a model, a teen model, and at this time her fashion was kind of questionable. So one day, Whitney Houston and Robyn decided to hang out. Robyn came to pick Whitney Houston up, and she just was joking Whitney about Whitney Houston's jeans. At this time, straight leg was in, but Whitney Houston kind of had some type of bell-bottom type of jeans. She said they were narrow at the top and flared out at the bottom, and she said she couldn't let Whitney go out like that. So she took Whitney Houston to the Willow Brick Mall in New Jersey, and they went to the Gap store, and she got Whitney Houston a pair of jeans. During their lunch breaks at work, Robyn was surprised to find out that Whitney Houston was a smoker, as well as a marijuana user. During this time, she would witness Whitney Houston pulling out cigarettes and also having a joint as well. During conversations, Whitney Houston told Robyn she could call her Nippy. That was her childhood name given to her by her father. She also told Robyn that she had a boyfriend named Craig, whose mother was an original member of the Sweet Inspirations. During this time, Robyn had problems with a female friend that she was seeing, and the girl was kind of very possessive, and she was telling Whitney Houston about the situation. And Whitney Houston told her, "Don't worry, I'll get you out of this situation." As time went on during the summertime, the two started getting closer and closer and closer. And Whitney Houston wasn't over Robyn's house. She was over Whitney Houston's house. And the first time she said she went into Whitney Houston's room was a mess. She said it was school uniforms everywhere, clothes thrown around everywhere. And they kept hearing this crunching sound from a Lay's potato chip bag that had a mouse inside of it. The two would take strolls around Whitney Houston neighborhood, and then they would spend time in Whitney Houston's living room. On one evening, Whitney and Robyn were sitting their backs towards the couch, face to face, talking for hours, and then a kiss happened. Robyn said the kiss was beautiful, just like honey. And then Whitney told Robyn, if I knew when my brothers were coming home, I would show you something. She said Whitney Houston was very feisty and could be a badass at times. The first time Whitney met Robyn's mother, she said, you have a face of an angel, but I know you're not. Robyn would say that Whitney Houston was not one of those boastful singers that went around singing all the time, but when she did feel the music, Whitney would go around with her Walkman and sing in her backyard, in the house, or in the car, and she would sing songs, especially by Shaka Khan, especially from the album that Whitney Houston recorded. Her and Luther Vandross recorded backgrounds for Shaka Khan on, and she really loved Shaka Khan's voice. She also was mesmerized by her own mother's voice. She and Robyn would spend hours listening to Cissy Houston backgrounds on various big time celebrity albums. So it was finally time for Robyn to see Whitney Houston in her true element. Whitney invited Robyn to church one Sunday, and Robyn was floored when she saw her best friend slash girlfriend be in the presence of the Lord. She said Whitney was phenomenal. She said the whole church went crazy over Whitney Houston's performance. As well as Whitney was accompanied by her friend Larry from church, and she was accompanied by her cousin Felicia. Felicia's mom and Whitney's mom, Sissy, are sisters. That Sunday after church, Whitney whispered to Robyn, we're spending the night over Larry's house. Larry was a really dear friend to Whitney Houston, and he would let the two ladies have his house for the weekend. Larry might be out partying himself or maybe at work, but he would let the two have his apartment to have quiet time and just time to themselves. Once at Larry's apartment, the two had Roy Rogers and they started smoking, and then they made love that night. After that night, Robyn noticed blood trails on the sheets, and to come to find out, Whitney Houston had a menstrual cycle and she didn't know it was coming on that day. And Robyn had to help clean her up and run to the store to get her feminine hygiene products. She said at times like that, Whitney Houston was like really small, felt real small about herself, and she said kind of like childlike, like what did I do? The two were inseparable during the rest of the summer. Robyn would take Whitney Houston to her modeling go-sees, and she also would take her sometimes to her mother gigs at night. Whitney would change clothes in the car to get ready for the gigs at Sweetwater's or the Bottom Line or other various clubs throughout New York City. Robyn also accompanied Whitney during rehearsals over her first musical director house, John Simmons. Whitney Houston would rehearse over there, and Whitney and John had a beautiful relationship, especially a beautiful musical relationship. During one of the rehearsals, Whitney Houston started playing the piano, and she started laughing at Robyn and saying, you don't know the song, do you? And Robyn couldn't think of the tune, and then Robyn finally got the tune, and Robyn said she started singing, the first time I ever saw your face. And I thought that was so beautiful. And Whitney told her that the first time that she saw her, that she thought she was very beautiful. Robyn said Whitney loved going to the beach, that she could swim like a fish. One day while they was at the beach, Robyn decided to rent a rowboat. So she rowed Whitney out into the water, and by the time it was time to come back on shore, Robyn got a little tired, asked Whitney could she help her, and Whitney Houston told her no. And the two start arguing out in water on a rowboat, and people passing them by in boats, and they were arguing like an old married couple. Robyn finally meets Whitney Houston's mom, and it was not a good meeting. She said Sissy was kind of cold and rude, and Whitney told her that she said her mom was not going to like her. She said her mother didn't like any of Whitney Houston's friends. Whitney and Robyn spent a lot of time in Ashbury Park, and they loved staying in beachfront hotels. Spend quiet time together. They loved being around each other. They was inseparable during the whole summer. Summer was about to end, and Robyn had to start school in the fall. She was going away to college, and this was going to kind of make or break her and Whitney Houston's relationship. Whitney and Robyn went to their first gay club together. She said they actually had a good time. Between dancing and laughing, the two would go in the bathroom and do party favors. After the club, the two were so hot and bothered they couldn't wait. So they got in the back of Robyn's mother's car, and the two went at it like animals. And so bad that they fogged up the windows, and the police came and knocked on the window and didn't even make them roll down the windows, told them to get lost. Once at college, Whitney and Robyn were still inseparable, but this time over the phone. The two would fall asleep on the phone with each other, and Whitney would come down on the weekends for Robyn's basketball games. Finally, Robyn made the decision to quit school to help Whitney Houston with her singing career. Now, during this time, Whitney and Robyn was doing a lot of partying. They were going to New York for party favors, and they were partying hard. So hard that Robyn's mother started to notice Robyn was slipping up. She dropped out of school. She's staying out all hours of the night. She's looking kind of zombie-like because all of the partying. And Robyn's mother found out what Whitney and Robyn was up to doing party favors, and she did not like it one bit. So she called Sissy Houston, and Sissy Houston brushed it off and kind of told Whitney that Robyn was, snitching on her. Things got so bad that Robyn's mother put her out. Robyn had no place to go, so she would sleep in a car in Whitney Houston's driveway on Dodge Street. Eventually, Robyn knew her mother was right, and she went back home. They mended their relationship, and Robyn started to think more clearer and wiser. In 1982, it was a huge Whitney Houston buzz all around New York City, at all the major record labels and nightclubs. Everybody knew about this girl named Whitney Houston. And finally, Whitney got her chance to sign her first record deal. Whitney Houston always loved the Lord and knew she had a close relationship with him. And she would always tell Robyn when she would read the Bible, God's so cool. I just love him. And on the Valentine's Day of 1982, Whitney came to visit Robyn and told Robyn that, that their relationship has to end physically because she didn't want to go to hell. She said homosexuality, people will go to hell. That was her belief system. And she didn't want to go there. And she said that the relationship would stay the same, but they just couldn't be physical anymore. Whitney gifted Robyn a Bible, and both of them wrote a love letter to each other in the Bible. This was very devastating to Robyn, but she knew that this was what Whitney Houston wanted, and she loved Whitney so much that, she said this is how things would have to be. But she was just, still grateful to be in Whitney Houston's life. After signing her record deal, the two moved into a condominium in Woodsbridge, New Jersey. Whitney Houston's mother did not like the idea one bit. So the day of Whitney Houston's moving, she was nowhere to be found. She was home, but she was nowhere to be found when Robyn was helping Whitney Houston move. So once Whitney Houston and Robyn got into the car, Whitney's mother ran to the front door and she said, Nippy, you forgot something. And she said she ran outside the front door waving a bag. And she said, you forgot your dish bag, Nippy. And licking her tongue out of her mouth. She said Whitney turned over and started busting out crying and cried all the way to their new home together. The two were still very close, but this time Whitney Houston started working on her first album. And working on her first album, she had to work with Jermaine Jackson for a few duets on the album. I don't know, Whitney Houston was just being curious, or just wanted to experience something new, but she started a love affair with Jermaine Jackson while recording on her first album in California. And Robyn could sense this. And once Whitney Houston came back home, she was asking Whitney Houston about everything, and Whitney Houston kept everything low key. And then one day, she just exploded on Whitney Houston on the highway and wound up physically hitting Whitney Houston. Instantly, Robyn regretted it. She apologized. Whitney Houston opened up about how she felt about Jermaine Jackson. And Robyn, it was a hard pill for her to swallow, but she accepted it. And I guess that kind of made them a little more stronger in their bond. They, like I said, they wasn't physical anymore, but they were close, very, very close. Well, the love affair with Jermaine Jackson didn't last one bit. Whitney Houston wanted Robyn by her side every step of the way. She even coerced Robyn to be in her music video, her debut music video, You Give Good Love. Now it was time for branding of Whitney Houston's image. So with the recommendation of the record company, they recommended Whitney Houston to go to Diana Ross hairstylist. While arriving at the beauty salon for a consultation, Robyn overheard some beauticians talking, and she really was impressed by a beautician named Carol Porter. Now, this time, Whitney was sitting in the stylist chair, and two other stylists came over to her and started grabbing and picking all in her hair, saying, "Oh, she don't even have no hair. Where's her edges?" Like Whitney Houston wasn't even there. So after the consultation was over, Whitney Houston burst out into tears in the car, letting Robyn know what happened. And Robyn told her that she already, had in mind the stylist that she wanted Whitney to work with. Whitney finally got her hair weaved, and when she looked up, Robyn said she looked like a lion because it was wild and different colors of auburns and blondes and things like that, and curly and bushy. And it was a different look for Whitney Houston. And the two thought of having a lion as the logo for Nippy Inc. And that's how Nippy Inc. was created. Now, with the success of Whitney Houston's first album, she's moving on up and everything is going so fast. Now, with the recommendation of her first manager, Eugene Harvey, Whitney Houston was looking for like a personal assistant, somebody to take care of personal things, because Robyn was taking care of like the business aspects of Whitney Houston. So that's where Sylvia came in place, and that's how Whitney, Sylvia, and Robyn became the three amigos. Now, Whitney Houston and Robyn, they kind of was outgrowing their first home, so they decided to get a luxurious high-rise apartment in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And if you look right across the street from the apartment, you can see New York City. Now, with new success, Whitney Houston wanted to kind of like, spend more of her money, just a little. But her manager, Eugene Harvey, was in charge of everything. So he was kind of one of those strict ones, like, if you don't need it, it's not a must. So he wouldn't give her a look. I think she wanted like an extra, it wasn't even that much money, probably like an extra few $100 a month. And he wouldn't budge, but she told her father. And with Robyn's recommendation, Robyn said, "Well, won't you ask your father to ask him, to give you more money?" And why she do that? Her and Robyn went over, and Whitney asked her father, to ask the manager. And after that, it was no problem with Whitney Houston wanting more money. And that's how her father started to get involved with her finances, just because that one little thing. John Houston started having problems with Robyn because Robyn wanted to know about the finances. Robyn was the creative director of Nippy Inc., and she just was an executive next to Whitney Houston. Anything concerning Whitney Houston had to come through Robyn. Everybody knew this. So he felt like, why she's questioning me, because he was guilty, because he had his hand in the pot and he was doing shady things. On the other hand, Michael, Whitney Houston's brother, was very nice and loving and kind towards Robyn. I never ever heard him say anything bad about Robyn in any interviews or anything, and Robyn never ever said anything bad about him. On Robyn's side, Robyn's mother loved and adored Whitney Houston as well as her brother Marty and her sister Robina. Whitney and Robyn would go visit Marty all the time while he was stationed or in service, or one time he got in a bad accident and they went to go see him to make sure he was okay. Marty was also the person that watched over Whitney Houston's New Jersey mansion when Whitney and Robyn would go on tour for months, and he would be there taking care of the cats and watching out over, her property. As time passing by, Whitney is becoming a mega superstar. I mean, just everywhere. She was everywhere in the 80s. So she was becoming in higher and higher and higher demands. In 1988, background dancers were incorporated in Whitney Houston's stage acts when she went on concerts and tours. So in London, she had a show at Wembley, and one of her background dancers named Joy took liking to Robyn and asked Robyn one day, let's go sightseeing. So they decided to go sightseeing, and Whitney was at this time she was catching up on her rest, and she woke up and she could not find Robyn or anybody else because everybody was at lunch or just they let her be. So by the time Robyn came back from going sightseeing with Joy that day, Whitney was in a frenzy, crying to her mother. So once Robyn entered the room, her mother came up to Robyn's face and started fussing at her, and it got physical. And Whitney told her mom to stop, and they stopped. And afterwards, Sissy asked Robyn was she okay, and she never apologized, but Robyn could tell that she was sorry. So once Robyn got back to the room, Robyn told Whitney how her day was, and Whitney started kind of seeming jealous, like, did you sleep with her? Or I could feel it. And so Robyn said, oh no, we just, we shared a kiss. And she said after she said that, Whitney slapped her, but then hugged her. And then they just spent the rest of the night together, and Robyn fell asleep in her bed. And it's so funny, the next day, Whitney and Robyn went sightseeing. And this right here, if y'all looking at the screen, is how this rare capture of Whitney and Robyn. You can see the love they have for one another in this pose, in this picture. After the tour was over and back home in States, Whitney fired Joy. She was so upset and angry about her and Robyn's friendship, even though she didn't believe it was a friendship. She thought it was something more. She was furious. One time, Joy came to Robyn's condo, and Whitney Houston wanted her out. And so after that, Whitney came back the next day and went on a rampage and tore the love letters that they wrote to each other out of the Bible that Robyn had on her nightstand. And she just was furious, very furious. Whitney didn't mind Robyn dating men, but when it came to women, she didn't like it at all. As Whitney Houston's fame kept getting higher and higher, the rumors of her and Robyn became higher and higher as well. The media interviews, everybody's asking her, is Whitney Houston gay? And it really bothered Whitney Houston so much. So Whitney Houston decided to date. At this time, she started dating. She was off and on with Eddie Murphy, and then she met Bobby Brown at the 1989 Soul Train Music Awards. Now, with dating Eddie Murphy, she really liked him more than he liked her, and he would stand her up. I remember one occasion, she for his birthday, she went to surprise him, and in lingerie with a fur coat and a cake, and was turned down at the gate after she waited 15 minutes to try to see him. And the guard told her that Eddie Murphy was busy, and she from that really took a toll on her self-esteem, where she went on a at least allegedly a 2-day drug binge, and she came home and Robyn and Sylvia found her. They said she barely could walk, and they said she just was crying saying, why don't they like me? After her brief encounter with Bobby Brown, the two started dating. He came to her birthday party, and then they went on. They were supposed to meet up, and the night that she's supposed to meet up, she got herself all ready, and she asked Sylvia and Robyn could they pick her up some condoms. Whitney was a trip. But after, so her and Bobby Brown had their date night. The next day, she talked to Sylvia and Robyn, and she was, giving them details about her date. And she told them that she had unprotected sex with Bobby Brown. And Robyn said, Nip, that's kind of dumb. Like, why would you do that? And during this time, we know that the pandemic of different diseases, especially STDs, was running rampant. And it was not a game. Or she could have just got an unwanted pregnancy at that time. So it was crazy. Whitney took gambles and risks with her life like that at times. So early 90s, Whitney, I think she kind of took a break from. She left Eddie Murphy alone. I guess she got tired of him. It was Robyn also did not like how Eddie Murphy always belittled Whitney Houston, always made jokes about her weaves, made fun of her in public, always said that was just his friend. But in actuality, I don't know what he was telling her behind the scenes. I know he gave her a big diamond ring and things like that. So you just don't give your friends diamond rings. So I don't know if she was just for his image or whatever the case may be, but Whitney called it quits with him, and her and Bobby Brown was kind of back and forth. But if you look into Whitney Houston's life in 1990 and early 91, Whitney and Robyn started to get more closer in public. Where back then you rarely could see a picture with Whitney and Robyn together, but they will be in the malls together. They will be in stores together. There'll be events together. I remember they went to an event out of the country to support a benefit supporting the AIDS and HIV epidemic, and the host there said how they were so loving and affectionate towards one another, that it was a love and a bond that he could see. And they would take pictures. Like Whitney would rarely ever take a picture with Robyn in public, and she just was taking pictures with her, and it was just a lot going on. And Whitney, and if you pay attention to her style in 1990 and 91, she was a little more masculine, pantsuits, and a little more open with her private life. She did an interview with Playboy magazine. So she really was trying, like, feeling herself. She was also wearing the cross in her earring on the. You remember back in the day? I don't know, y'all remember this? You had to wear it in a certain ear, an earring in a certain ear to let people know that you was allegedly gay. And Whitney was wearing that cross in that ear, to me, allegedly. So I really believe Whitney, I don't know, she really was feeling herself in 1990. Like in 1990 and 1991, I think she really could really consider being with Robyn and not caring what people would say, in my opinion. I think what really drew the line between Whitney Houston's Robyn's love for one another and relationship wise, I think it came in when in the late 80s, Robyn, tried to confide in Cissy Houston that, Whitney Houston had a bad drug problem. And Cissy Houston going back and running once again, saying, oh, she's snitching on y'all. She's snitching on you, Nippy. She's snitching on you, Michael and Donna. And I think that really made Whitney Houston upset at Robyn, saying, of all people, you go to her and tell her. I think the last factor was the 1990 Fame, it was October 1990 Fame magazine issue where Whitney Houston was on the cover story. And they interviewed them and asked, can Robyn say you a few things, and asked when Robyn what she was up to and what was her business ventures. And then once the magazine came out, oh my gosh, they turned it on Whitney and Robyn, and was kind of alluded that Whitney and Robyn was together, and Whitney Houston felt so violated. I mean, Robyn said she was so angry about that interview that she never did ever did an interview with Fame magazine ever again, for them violating her like that and trying to spin the narrative. After that interview, Robyn said Sissy Houston did not want her to even walk next to Whitney Houston or ride in the same car as Whitney Houston during award shows and appearances. It got really bad, y'all. It all makes sense now. It adds up. In 1991, in my opinion, Whitney Houston was looking rampant for a boyfriend or somebody to call her boyfriend or be in a relationship with. I mean, she was being spotted out with Randall Cunningham, like different events and occasions. And you can tell, like on their vacation photos, they purposely was taking those photos because her father, in my opinion, was a mastermind because he already set that to Robyn and Whitney to double date with guys. Then her father was trying to marry her off to allegedly MC Hammer. MC Hammer told the story. MC Hammer was married already at the time, and he asked MC Hammer to marry Whitney Houston because MC Hammer during that time was really a big thing. And he said, won't you marry my daughter? And that's weird to me. All that stuff is weird to me. Somehow Bobby Brown got back in the picture, and Whitney was not going to let him get out of her sight. She wanted to get married and have a baby, in my opinion. So I think I think it was either terms or conditions between their relationship, in my opinion. I just don't think it was just a natural fit, because your father was just about to marry you to MC Hammer, was trying to, and then the next year you marry Bobby Brown. That's weird to me. And so Bobby Brown came back in the picture, and of course, they are, dating, and they are having some red flags between each other. They're having hotel fuss and arguments, but Whitney still want to get married. She want these rumors to go away, and she want to, try to live this fairy tale life, in my opinion. So, it's warning signs from day one. As she's engaged to Bobby Brown, he gets his baby mother already pregnant with his son, Bobby Brown Jr. And this was a red flag to her, as well as, the baby mama confronting Whitney Houston at a Bobby Brown concert, saying, if he'll do it to me, he'll do it to you. It don't matter if you Whitney Houston or not. And she was right. And as well as when Whitney and Robyn and Sylvia gave Bobby Brown a surprise visit at his Atlanta mansion at the time. And the chef even pulled Robyn aside and asked her, like, do Whitney Houston know what she getting herself into?